All right, everyone. Brendancarr is Donald Trump's nod for head of the FCC for his second term. I think that this is a good idea. Link in the description, archived, of course, based on one of his first statements with regards to what he wants the FCC to do. There's a song by a band called Cheap Sex. It's a punk band from the 2000s. I don't know if they're still active or not. And they had a song called I've Been Raped by the FCC. I've been raped by the FCC, Bush would take my freedom from me, and so on and so on forth. The FCC has generally been a muscle of the U.S. government to suppress speech, to suppress expression. You'll think about the de facto ban, not technical ban, but de facto ban, let's get it right after 9/11 on things like Free Fallin' by Tom Petty and all of those things. Just look up the Dixie Chicks. It is wide sweeping. The FCC is generally involved with censorship, generally involved with applying anti-obscenity laws, which shouldn't exist at all, and things like that. If the FCC can be truly retooled, as Carr is effectively insinuating here, to oppose censorship and to try to prevent it from happening, to open up the airwaves to free speech and free expression, my goodness, you'll have a federal bureau that actually functions. That hasn't happened in a while. Try and think of another one that functions properly. For example, look at Zeldin might reform the EPA the same way. Hey, why don't we just get out of the way of states when they're trying to extract resources? We might make a lot of money. And it would make a lot of people happy. Like, they just found a huge deposit of gallium, I guess, in Montana. We're almost entirely reliant on East Asia for our gallium supply. And, of course, the environmentalists are already rampaging about it and, making threats and shit like that. I look at Trump's cabinet picks. Generally speaking, I am quite happy with them. Yes, there are a few that are faltering a bit, like Hegseth, for example. He might not get that raw. I guess he's going live later and talking about his own qualms. I guess he's going in Fox or something like that, if I remember correctly. And he might get replaced, by the way, by Ron DeSantis. I'm perfectly fine with that, by the way, in his role, defense secretary. With Brendancarr, I think it's one of the better picks, him heading the FCC. If his first statement is, hey, the FCC has been censoring people for decades, but now we're going to try to do the opposite, at least for a limited period of time, that would be grand. And I think I know why he would take up that tag. He's tied with Donald Trump, of course. He's going to be part of that administration. Donald Trump has been blockaded, persecuted, and silenced too. And if it can happen to a sitting president of the United States, it can literally happen to anyone if you don't toe the line. I think that in some aspects, Trump has a personal vendetta with regards to censorship. I think that that's great, by the way. There's nobody better to head a federal bureau than somebody who's been chosen, who's been persecuted by that bureau, because the hope is it shrinks in its role. Maybe it gets compacted. Maybe he says, oh, you know what? We don't need this many employees to do our job. So we're axing half of our workforce. Bye. I think that would be a wonderful thing. It would save a lot of taxpayers' money, by the way, in the process of doing so. The FCC generally is like the bad guys. They're the ones that are censoring the radio waves. They're the ones that are trying to censor the internet, etc., etc. If you therefore have an administration, though, incoming, which has suffered from that censorship explicitly and directly, the hope is that you're more likely to get a good outcome and that censorship, if not goes away, at the very least is diminished in its capacity. So I think that Carr will do a good job, assuming that he's confirmed. I'm not sure if he's been confirmed yet. Several people have been confirmed, I think, already. Oh no, those were judges. Never mind. I'm thinking about an entirely different news story. I'm hoping that Carr gets in there. I think that he'll generally do a good job. Again, an FCC that defends free expression as opposed to being an enemy of free expression. That would be one hell of a breath of fresh air. It would be sort of like if you get ahead of the IRS that reforms the IRS and all of a sudden they're like, hey, you know what, maybe we need to do a little bit less of this auditing bullshit. I got a letter from the IRS the other day. There's some sort of FEMA-related thing, and they lost one of my tax records. At least they acknowledged that I paid them, so that's not a problem. Don't worry, but yeah, it's still rather funny. Federal bureaus can be made a little bit more effective at preserving liberty as opposed to deliberately and explicitly opposing it. I think that's always a good thing. That's about all. Peace out.